And we're back for some math. Okay, so on the front, there's not an exact answer that we can get. You all can come up with your own answer. But first, you have to write a question about the type of sneaker we are wearing graph. And each circle stands for one child. Remember, when you ask your question, you need to have a question word such as what, where, why, which, how, and the likes, so that you can have a question. And then remember, you have the correct punctuation at the end. After you ask your question, go ahead and then answer your question. So what is the answer to whatever you ask about this graph? You can pause the video to complete this, and then when you're ready to move on, go ahead and hit play. The past few days, we've been talking about picture graphs. Now we're going to start talking about a bar graph. Okay? A bar graph, like it says in the name, is going to have some bars. Okay? So it's the long lines that are going to go to the end, to whatever number it represents. Okay? You're going to touch the end of the bar, and you're going to follow it down to where the number is. Or sometimes a bar graph is going up and down, in which case you would trace up and then go over to find the number if the numbers are on the side. Okay? Every graph is going to have a title. In this top box, it wants you to write a title that could fit with what it is showing. So on a bar graph, they also have the sides labeled. So over here on the side where we have our categories, it says art tools. So I know our categories are a type of art tool that people can use. And then down at the bottom, it tells us what the numbers represent. The numbers represent children. So on a picture graph, each circle, we look to the key and we would find which circle or which symbol represents how many of something. Okay? On a bar graph, it's going to be labeled underneath the numbers to tell you what they mean, and the categories are then also going to be labeled. So at the top, it has a blank. It wants you to fill in a title that could match this graph right here. I'm going to give an example one. You could have something a little bit different, and you can look back at titles of picture graphs to help you get an idea of how you should label it. So I'm going ahead and calling this graph favorite art tools to use. Okay? Now we're going to answer some questions using this graph. Number 1, how many children chose paintbrush? Okay, paintbrushes. So we would go to our category of paintbrushes, and we're going to follow that bar all the way down until it reaches its end. When we reach the end, we're then going to go down to find the number, and I can see that the paintbrushes, the number of children that like paintbrushes, is 6. Okay. Number 2, how many children chose crayons? So we go up to our bar graph, find crayons, trace the bar all the way over until it ends, go down to the number, and I know there are 2 children that chose crayons. Number 3, how many more children chose paintbrushes than crayons? Okay, how many more tells us we need to subtract. And I already have my numbers here, so I know 6 minus 2 is going to give me the answer of 4. 4 more children chose paintbrushes than crayons. Number 4, which art tool did the fewest children choose? Think about what fewest means. Fewest means the least amount, the smallest amount of children. So looking up here, they all go. As you can see, crayons is the last one to stop, which means it has the fewest. And number 5, which art tool did the most children choose? So now we're doing the opposite. Which one has the most? When you're looking for the most, it's easier to go to the end of the graph and see which one you see first. I can see paintbrushes is still going the longest, so the most children chose paintbrushes. When you're done with this, you can flip. Okay, now we're going to use this bar graph. We have a new bar graph. Read our title, favorite vehicle. And notice this bar graph is then going up and down vertical. Okay, so we have kinds of vehicles at the bottom. We have car, truck, and dump truck. And then our numbers represent the number of children that chose that. Okay, so number 6 at top. How many children chose cars? Pause the video so you can write your answer and then hit play again. If we can go to cars down at the bottom, and then we're going to go all the way up until it stops, and then go over to find our number, which is the number 2, which means 2 children chose cars. Number 7, how many children chose dump trucks? Okay, pause the video to write in your answer. If we go over here to dump truck, our category, we're going to trace the bar all the way up until it stops, and then we're going to go over to our number, and we get the number 6. So 6 children chose dump trucks. Number 8, how many children in all chose cars and dump trucks? In all is going to tell us what? Pause the video to do your work. Okay, that in all tells us that we need to add. And we already have our numbers from the previous 2 answers. So when we do this, we need to think 2 plus 6 equals 8. 8 children in all chose cars and dump trucks. Number 9. How many more children chose trucks than cars? Okay. Pause the video, do your work. Okay. So how many more is going to tell us that we need to subtract. Okay. So we need to know how many trucks there are. So we go to our trucks category, trace it all the way up, go on over to the number, and we have 5. And we know cars have 2. And since we're subtracting, our largest number goes first. So we have 5 minus 2 equals 3. 3 more children chose trucks than cars. Number 10. Which vehicle did most children choose? Pause the video, do your work. We want the most. So I'm going to go to the top at the largest number, and I'm going to go over, and we find that dump trucks had the most kids choose it. Number 11, order the vehicles from least to most votes. Write 1 for the least votes and 3 for the most votes. Go ahead and pause the video so that you can work. Okay. I'm going to start with the least votes because it gets a 1. So if I go up here, I can see the least votes is for car. So car has a 1 underneath it. And then I'm going to go ahead and just go ahead and do the most. The most is going to have a 3 under it. And I know the most from our previous question is the dump truck. So dump trucks has 3 under it, which means trucks would just have 2 under it. Flip your page. Okay, our new bar graph. Our title is How Our Jackets Are Fastened. And then we have types of fasteners for our categories, that's what our categories are. and the numbers at the bottom says number of jackets. Okay? Number 12. How many more jackets have zippers than buttons? Go ahead and pause it so you can work. How many more is our keywords. That tells us we need to subtract. Okay, so if we go up here, we find our two numbers. We have 5 and 2. If we were to subtract, we do 5 minus 2, and we'll get the difference of what's left, 3. So 3 more jackets have zippers than buttons. 13. Kim puts on a jacket with buttons. Add her jacket to the graph. How many jackets have buttons? So you need to add to that bar so that it shows another jacket with buttons, just like I did on the screen. Now pause the video and finish your work. How many jackets have buttons? We can see there's now 3. 14. Ed adds a row to the graph to show jackets with snaps. 2 fewer jackets have snaps than zippers. How many jackets have snaps? Okay, so I have a bar right here. This one we're going to do all together. So if I were to add this, I'm going to add it under the numbers right here. Right now I have it the same as the zippers because I'm going to change it so that we can have 2 fewer jackets have snaps than zippers. So I need 2 fewer than the zippers. So 1, 2. I took away 2 from that bar graph that was the same as zippers, which leaves me with how many jackets with snaps? 3. 15. Use the graph at the top. How many jackets have zippers? Pause the video, you fill it in. And if I were to move this, I can go up. I know the end of the zipper bar graph. Go down, and there are 5 jackets. And you're finished for today with math.